What's going on, YouTube? Uncle OG in the building. Hey, this video is brought to you by Timeless Tees and Apparel. Hey, thank you for watching. Hey, the link is in the description. Check out our merch store on Facebook. Support the brand. Check out the new movement, the Black Men Matter movement. If you're feeling disrespected, unappreciated, and unacknowledged, hey, support the brand. Let's start a movement. Thank you for watching. Check out the content. Okay, welcome to my family academy where I am going to be reviewing my family records and genealogy. The point of this channel is to really help us all understand where we come from and the impact of our history on how we live today and who we are today. So in today's video, I am going to be going through the records for my father's side of the family, which are the last name Black. So we're going to start off with my great grandfather, Andrew Black, which is the beginning. So let's get into it. Okay, so my grandfather is Andy Black. That is the grandfather for me and my four siblings, and my three siblings, my two brothers and my sister. And so his parents were also Andy Black and Millie Clark. So those were our great grandparents. Andy Black is our great grandfather. He was married to Carrie Bell Blue, who was our great grandmother, and they are the parents of our grandfather, Paul A. Black, who is the father of our father, Warren Black, and Wilma J. Brown is our grandmother, and that is the mother of our father, Warren Black. So let's get into the history here. Okay, so our grandfather, Andy Black, was born in 1861 in Oklahoma, the son of Millie and Andy. He had four sons and one daughter from one relationship, and then he married Carrie Bell Blue, and they had 7 children together. And he died, and he didn't die in Ada, Oklahoma. He actually died in Portland. Him and our grandmother, Carrie, they both died in Portland. I just need to update some records here. But he was basically married 3 times. This was not uncommon back in these times. Like I said, he was born in 1861. So anytime, today we have these, we just misinformed on history. So that's why I want to clarify some things, just to help us have a greater understanding of our history so we can have a greater clarity just in life in general. So Andy's parents were Andy Black and Millie Clark. And then he was married to our grandmother, Carrie Bell Blue. He was married to Mandy Johnson, and his first wife was Louisa Black. Now, Mandy Johnson, I'm not sure if they had any children together. There's so many records, I get some things confused, but they may have had some children together. I'm not quite sure. So I'm just going to focus on the information that I'm absolutely positive of. So he had 11 children in total. Now, give me one moment here. Okay, so looking at the Chickasaw Freedman card 147, this is related to our grandfather's first wife, which was with Lily Black, so or Louisa Black. In the matter of the application of Andy Black and others for enrollment as Chickasaw Freedman, Andy Black being sworn by Commissioner, whoever that says. He says, I'm 38 years old and I belong to Ellen, the first wife of Humphrey Colbert. So our ancestors were slaves, but I'm going to go into some information to give a greater understanding on what slaves truly were back in these times. We hear slaves and we automatically think like, we were getting beat by white people and the white men and the whole roots narrative, which is false. The Hollywood narrative that we've been given is completely false. Think of slavery as no different than a different word for employee. If you were to be classified today as employees, back in these days, you would be the same classification simply as a slave, meaning like you're an indentured servant. You work for someone that has a more prominent status or is in a wealthier class. And you are an indentured servant within that organization or within that family. So we basically worked for more prominent members in the Chickasaw tribe, those families that were more of a governors and things of higher stature. We worked for those families, and we intermingled with those families as well. Meaning, like, some of those families would give wives to our family and whatnot, and that's how we basically, that was prominent within the Chickasaw Nation, within the tribe, within the Indian tribes. This was before the United States government got us to where we are today. So he says here, my wife Louisa is half sister to Tennessee Vaughn by the same mother. Chickasaw Freedman card 145. We have 5 children: Lily, Willie, Cleveland, Prince, and Mary. So he had 5 children with his first wife, which was Louisa Black. So I'll go ahead and move on from here. Okay, so here we are on the tree. This gives you a better view. So our great-great-grandparents, Andy Black and Millie Clark, they gave birth to Andy Black, who was our great-grandfather. He married our great-grandmother, who was Carrie Bell Blue. And then they had children from here on. His first wife with Louisa Black, these are those children. So Lily, Willie, Cleveland, Prince, and Mary, and William were all his children. I think I got William twice. So yeah, I think I have him twice. I think this is the same person. So yeah, so this was his, I think that was his wife. But anyway, Willie, Cleveland, Prince, and Mary, and Lily, and Lily. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were his first children with his first wife, and then his second wife, which was Carrie Bell Blue, maybe his third wife, because he was married to Johnson as well. And then you have Cecil, Luke, our grandfather Paul, and I believe there was one. Oh yeah, and then Warren and Esther and David. So those were all the children that he had with our grandmother. And this is where our father came from, was from Paul A. Black and Wilma J. Brown. That is our grandparents. These are our great-grandparents. And these are our great-great-grandparents. Now, our great-great-grandparents and our grandparents were slaves. But I'm going to go into the details explaining how the slavery that our ancestors were a part of does not fit the story, the narrative of slavery that we've been taught, which was being owned by white people and being beat with whips and all of the slave movie rhetoric that we've been fed is not accurate for our story. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's just review what the artificial intelligence has to tell us about what was Oklahoma like when our grandfather was born. In 1861, Oklahoma, USA was a land of diverse cultures and communities. It was a time of great change and conflict as the nation was on the brink of the American Civil War. Oklahoma, then known as Indian Territory, was home to various Native American tribes, European settlers, and African Americans. This response will provide a brief overview of the different groups and their experiences during this period. So, our ancestors were part of the Indian tribes. You know, they keep changing different names to confuse us. When you hear Native American, you automatically think of like, you know, people with feathers in their head and looking like, you know, what we know today is Native Americans. But these were our people. These were the black people that lived here in the United States that were not brought here on slave ships. And our family on our father's side, we were already here. We weren't slaves brought on slave ships. We did work as slaves, as indentured servants within the tribe, the Chickasaw tribe. But that was normal practice amongst the tribe and the governments and the governing bodies within the tribe before the United States government came into place, which we're still living under today. And this is actually going to go into some of that high level, what I'm trying to help clarify for us so we can have a better understanding, because this is nothing that we were ever taught in school. So that's the point of this channel is, understanding your own history. There's no greater history than understanding your own. So when you understand your own history, it clarifies so many different things in life that I think are important for us to understand. So without this information and this knowledge, I wouldn't have the confidence and security that I have in sharing this information, and just also embracing my culture and who I am truly and where my ancestors came from truly. And now that I have this story, I have a greater respect just for my parents, our grandparents, our ancestors, period. So I think it's very important that we honor all of those that help, that brought us here, and understanding what life was like for them, and then examining what our lives are like today. And basically how we're still basically being controlled and ruled by the United States government. But the Native American tribes in 1861, numerous Native American tribes called Oklahoma home, including the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and the Seminole. These tribes had established their own governments, economies, and cultures. However, the looming Civil War brought challenges as some tribes were divided in their loyalties, with some supporting the Union and others the Confederacy. This division led to internal conflicts and displacements for many Native Americans. So, we were told that the Civil War was, about slavery in the North fighting the South, when the Civil War truly was about the United States government taking control of what they called the 5 civilized tribes of the Indians that were already here, and acclimating our tribes, our nation, our people to the current United States government system that we are still living under today. So these are things that I didn't know. I'm still trying to get clarification. So if there's anything that I'm saying here that doesn't make sense, hey, look it up yourself. I encourage you to take a look at the Trail of Tears, which is how we got into what they called Indian Territory before it became the state of Oklahoma. But this is where all our ancestors were. And if you look at the history of the Indian Removal Act, I believe of I can't remember the exact year, but if you look up the Indian Removal Act, I think it was enacted by President Andrew Jackson. But this was the beginning of the destruction of our people, being the indigenous Indian tribes that were already here in what they call the United States. We were already here on the land, and this is how we've had basically our roots uprooted and taken from us. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause here for a moment, and then I will go into some more records. Okay, now here's one of the important records right here that clearly shows that our great-grandfather was a slave. So Andy Black, this was his father. And of course, his name was Andy, but this is our great-great-grandfather. His father's owner was Quincy Cochran. His mother's name was Willie Clark. This is talking about our great-grandfather. This was his record. This is like the backside of a specific record pertaining to him. And then this is the part I want to focus on, is Humphrey Colbert. This was our great-great-grandmother's owner. This was our grandfather's owner. There's another record where I show, well, I don't show, but it shows that Humphrey Colbert was also our great-grandfather's owner. I'll have to find that record. I can't find it right now. But I'm going to go ahead and show you who Humphrey Colbert was. Okay, give me one moment. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Humphrey Colbert right here. Okay, so I'm going to end this with the history of the Colbert family, which is the family that our family worked for decades within the Chickasaw Nation and Indian Territory. So, and these were not white people. These were actual full-blooded Chickasaw Indians, same as our ancestors, same as our family, the blacks, the blues, the Franklins, the Browns, all of these. When we were in Indian Territory, that was part of the Indian Removal Act. Like I said, go look that up. I would go into that, but I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible so that you actually watch it. Let me move this back. But I'm going to read this as concisely as I can and as clearly as I can. So the final resting place of Governor Winchester Colbert, still a question. No, this is the second in a series of articles highlighting the burial place of Chickasaw governors since removal to Indian Territory. The exact burial place of the second governor of the Chickasaw Nation, Governor Dougherty Winchester Colbert, is somewhat of a mystery. Former Governor Winchester Colbert served the Chickasaw Nation for 3 terms. He led the tribe through tumultuous times that included the run-up to Civil War and the actual war between the states. Like I said, the United States government is what took over, and that's the rule of law that we are still under to this day. While his leadership during this difficult time is certain, there appears to be some question about the precise burial place of the distinguished governor, whose appearance and fashion is often compared to Abraham Lincoln. A 1940 biography of Winchester Colbert tells how the former governor in 1866 sold his home near Oil Springs in the Chickasaw Nation and moved to Atoka County, Choctaw Nation. Governor Colbert and his wife, Annika Kemp Colbert, were related to the Kemps as well. I've met them. There's a group online, and there's a big, huge family group that I met online from a family member with the last name Kemp and Clark that go way back, but we're related to them as well. And I talked to them back in 2017 before I fully understood how we were related to them. Later returned to the Chickasaw Nation and made their home with their son, Humphrey Colbert. This was our great-grandfather's owner. On property located about 2 miles west of the present town of Frisco, Johnston County. The article written by Bartlett Meserve went on to say, when the governor died in 1880, he was buried in a family cemetery in a crudely marked grave on the property near Frisco. His widow, Annika, returned to the home in Oil Springs. She died in 1884. Our great-grandfather was born in 1864. She died in 1884 and was buried in the family graveyard at Oil Springs. Information about Colbert Cemetery, published by the Pontotoc County Historical and Genealogical Society, fixes the grave of son Humphrey Colbert. The account includes a story of the son who asked to be buried next to his father, and of his father's grave being subsequently bulldozed and covered with cement. They wouldn't do that to a white man. Other accounts on geology websites such as deancrocker.com list Governor Colbert's place of death as Atoka County, Pontotoc County connection. Other evidence suggests Governor Colbert's grave was actually located in Pontotoc County, Oklahoma. Writing about the first oil produced in Oklahoma, historian in Choctaw Muriel H. Wright describes a 1872 meeting at Governor Colbert's home. Excerpts of the 1926 article describe a meeting among certain citizens of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations at Governor Colbert's home in Old Pontotoc County, Chickasaw Nation in February 1872. Other accounts seem to indicate the town of Frisco was located between Fitztown and Stonewall in Pontotoc County and was the original Stonewall town site. It was renamed Frisco when the present town of Stonewall was moved about 3 miles directly east to its present location, according to the 1942 article Reminiscences of Old Stonewall by George W. Burris. Beyond that, there is some question regarding Humphrey Colbert's tombstone and whether it actually marks his grave, since the headstones and possibly the bodies were moved from their original position prior to the construction of a reservoir. Although the actual burial place of Governor Colbert may remain a mystery, his legacy as an important Chickasaw leader is well documented. Winchester Colbert's legacy as a leader began long before he became governor. Born in the Chickasaw homelands in 1810, Winchester Colbert was the youngest member of the Levi Colbert family. He was fluent in Chickasaw, Choctaw, and English. That's how we spoke English. And I'm sure we spoke other languages too at one point in time. But if you look at the census records, the predominant language that we spoke was English. Like his cousin, the Chickasaw Nation's first governor, Cyrus Harris, he served as a diplomat for the Chickasaw Nation. At the age of 16, he served as a Chickasaw representative in Washington, D.C. After relocating to Indian Territory, Winchester Colbert worked diligently as a diplomat to establish the Chickasaw tribe's sovereignty. He had a hand in framing the 1855 treaty that recognized the Chickasaw Nation as an independent nation rather than a district within the Choctaw Nation. In 1856, he played a prominent role in framing the Chickasaw Constitution and served as one of the first Chickasaw legislators under that Constitution. During the Civil War years, when the Chickasaw Nation sided with the South and chaos reigned over much of the region, Governor Colbert was forced to seek refuge in the Red River Valley of North Texas for a time. My mother's parents are from there. That's where my great grandfather and great grandmother, they lived in Red River, Texas on my mother's side. He fled to avoid becoming a casualty of war, according to Dr. Philip Morgan's book, Riding Out the Storm, as the North's take no prisoners mantra would mean the future Chickasaw governor's assassination, a demoralizing and crippling blow to the Confederate forces south of the Canadian and Arkansas rivers. Governor Colbert returned to the Chickasaw Nation in the fall of 1864, and the Chickasaw Nation became the last of the 5 tribes to surrender July 14th, 1865, which is shortly after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. So it was really about getting the Indian tribes to surrender to the United States government's constitution. That's really what it was all about. The Civil War, slavery, and everything was taking the sovereignty from the Indian nations and handing it over to the United States government, which is where we are today. In October of that year, Governor Colbert addressed the first session of the Chickasaw Council to convene since the beginning of the Civil War, advising them to bring about the manumission of slaves at the earliest practicable period. The Chickasaw Nation entered the war as an independent ally of the Confederacy, and Governor Colbert headed the delegation to Washington that negotiated a separate final treaty with the U.S. government April 28, 1866. Later that year, Governor Colbert left office as Cyrus Harris resumed the office. During his life, Winchester Colbert married 5 times and had at least 15 children. He died in 1880. That was common in the Chickasaw tribe. That's why my grandfather had 3 wives. Our father, Warren Black, he had children with 4 different women. He tried to marry Irma, but they were 18. So he never married my mother. He never married Ahmed's mother. He never married Enrique's mother, because those were just children born out of wedlock, which is what you have common today. Governor Colbert was inducted into the Chickasaw Hall of Fame in 2008. His Hall of Fame marker can be found at the Chickasaw Honor Garden, located at the Chickasaw Cultural Center in Sulphur, Oklahoma. So there's some history on our family right there that none of us have ever known. I know I've never known this. This is first of many videos. I hope you learned something. I hope this gave you some enlightenment. And I have more videos to come, but I'm going to go ahead and close this out here. And thank you for listening. Okay, and here's going to be the final ending. Grandfather Paul A. Black and grandmother Wilma J. Brown. Here's our father, Warren A. Black. He never married my mother, June Mitchell. He did marry Michelle's mother, who was Irma. I forget the last name right now. Irma Jean Walton. I actually have their marriage record, but I won't go into that. So I just want to share this. This is for my own personal children so they can understand their ancestry. This would be your great-grandfather, kids. This was your grandfather and your grandmother who unfortunately deceased before you guys were born. And then here's your Uncle Enrique that you've probably never met anytime recently. There's your Uncle Ahmed. Here's your father, me. And then there's your Auntie Michelle. So we're all the children of your grandfather, Warren A. Black, your great-grandfather, Paul A. Black, your great-great-grandfather, who was Andy Black, and then your great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was also Andy Black. Let me pause for a moment. Okay, I'll close with another visual here on the actual family tree. This is where it all began here with Andy Black, my great-great-grandfather. And then we go to our great-grandfather who married Carrie Bell Blue and had our grandfather, Paul A. Black, who married our grandmother, Wilma J. Brown, who gave birth to our father, Warren Allen Black. They had other children as well, too, but I just don't have them in the tree. But I will close out here and thank you for listening.